This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to another edition of the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience. I'm Steve Riddle, back again for another go-round. And today we are kicking off our theme week this week, where we are going to be discussing movies that are about vacations. Of course, it is pretty much the official, it is officially now summer, and as we know, one of the big things of summer is if you going on vacation, whether it's solo or with as a couple, or with family. It's just one of the hallmarks of the season here. There have been a lot of great movies throughout the years that have dealt with vacations, and the film I'm doing for you today is probably one of the more quintessential vacation films that's out there, and it actually has the word vacation in the title. Of course, I am talking about National Lampoon's Vacation. This, of course, was released on July 29th, 1983. Budget of $15 million, box office $61.4 million. So a good little success there. Starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Anthony Michael Hall, Dana Barron, Randy Quaid, John Candy, Christine Berkeley, Eugene Levy, Miriam Flynn, Brian Doyle Murray, among others. Of course, sees our favorite movie dad, Clark Griswold, take his family on a cross-country road trip to Wally World, which is in California, and the film covers all of their mishaps and misfortunes along the way, as Clark is determined to get to Wally World by any means necessary. So as I normally do, I will start off here with the 3 things that worked and 3 things that didn't work. So for 3 things that worked, number 1, the subtitle of this film might as well have just been Murphy's Law, because basically anything that can't, which for those that don't know, Murphy's Law is basically the theory that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and pretty much anything that can go wrong will go wrong here for the Griswolds, as they, starting right off the bat with the fact that the car that Clark wanted was not there. He ended up getting fleeced into a much uglier car, and then from there it's just complete dissension into madness for him and the family. Getting the car tagged and vandalized in St. Louis, being forced to take Aunt Edna and her dog in Kansas. And just all the chaos going forward, and it does provide obviously a lot of great great moments throughout the course of the movie, because through it all, Clark is just, like I said, so determined to get to Wally World, and you just see like each little thing like chip away at him to the point that when we do get to the end, when they do get to Wally World, it all culminates, and I'll actually talk about that here shortly. But yeah, just seeing all the different misfortunes that they go through definitely provides a lot of great moments for the film. Number 2, I don't know if when this film came out, if they had intentions of doing sequels. Obviously, so we know we would actually get a few sequels off of this, and then of course a remake of this film all the way down the line. But I think they knew that if they did end up going with sequels, that they wanted to keep the character of Cousin Eddie in the film, because he is really funny for the brief time he's on the screen here. Obviously played to perfection by Randy Quaid, and again, considering I think he was probably intended just to be a one-off, he ended up providing a lot of good little comedy for the for the film, and just seeing he and Clark interact, and Clark's clear uncomfortableness with him, and just the fact that he's And Eddie's just again so oblivious to the fact that Clark is uncomfortable around him, and he thinks Clark likes him to the point that when they leave, he gifts him those shoes because he said he heard Clark say that he liked them, so he wanted to get him a pair. So, I mean, if anything, it just goes to show Eddie's dedication to to Clark, and as we would see that throughout the series, particularly in I think we see it a lot more in Christmas Vacation from 1989. Kind of that, how Eddie feels about Clark, and again, we only get that little brief moment with them and with Eddie, Catherine, and their kids, which they're quite the interesting bunch. Including of course. What was her name? Daisy Mabel, the girl born without a tongue, so she can't speak, but she has other attributes. And then we get the other kids. Like what was it? Vicky, who tells Audrey that that everyone says that she's the best French kiss in the world, including her dad. And they just see Audrey's face just get so uncomfortable, and again, it's just again for such a for his limited screen time he made Randy Quaid made the most of it as Eddie. And like I said, I'm sure that when they were thinking of sequels, they were probably thinking, how do we get Eddie back into this? So I will give them some kudos for that one. And number 3, like I said, the final ending sequence here is just absolutely incredible, where they finally, after everything that the family's been through, they make it to Wally World. They think they're going to have a great time, only to find out that the park is closed for 2 weeks for maintenance. And I mean, talking about the ultimate, punch in the balls. And you finally see this after everything that they've been through, particularly Clark, who his whole entire goal was to get his family to Wally World. And to see him snap like he does, and come up with this plan of, infiltrating the park with a BB gun and taking one of the security guards with them, it just goes to show again the dedication that Clark has to his family. And he mentions at one point, he mentions at the very beginning, he admits he's a workaholic and he rarely gets to see his family, and he wants to do this. That's why they ended up, that's why he wanted to drive instead of go in an airplane, which Ellen has tried to convince him to, but he wanted to drive because he wanted to get this time with his family. And just to see him again, just I mean, that the punch to the moose's nose was just the ultimate culmination of everything that's happened to him. That he's been able to he overcame everything, and ultimately it was almost for nothing. So I thought that again but it was perfect because again it's, Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and how much wrong could it go that you go to this. The time you get to go to the theme park, and it just happens to be when the park decides to close for a few weeks to do, routine maintenance and repairs. So, I mean, that's the worst luck you can possibly have. But keep in mind, this is still, I'm assuming this is set in 83. So, there's no internet. There's no, there's no way to know in advance that the park is going to close, because I don't think they would even advertise that on television. So, but yeah, I guess it's just, the perfect culmination of everything for Clark to survive everything, only to get to Wally World, have it be closed, and then he just finally, ultimately snaps. So I think that was, just, you couldn't have thought of a better way. Like, if they had just made it to the park and it was open and, and they just had a really fun time, I don't think it would have been as satisfying as this ending was, where they get there, the park is closed, and he's got to think of something to get his family in there. So kudos to Harold Ramis, who, of course, who directed the film, for doing that. And now we go to the 3 things that didn't work. Number 1, I feel like, even though she did provide some good comedy bits, I feel like the character of Aunt Edna was ultimately kind of just, I don't know, unnecessary. She did, like I said, she did provide some good comedy, and there's a moment where she dies during the trip, and then they just leave her on the back porch there of her son's house, and Clark clearly is just wanting to get rid of her, but Ellen is just trying to honor her, and it's just, again, provides some good comedy. But I think at the end of the day, there's probably something else we could have done to kind of fill the time where we didn't really need her. So again, it's kind of a small nitpick, but that's just, just my opinion. Number two, I will admit, I've only seen this movie a few times. When it comes to the Vacation series, I was always more like a constant watcher of Christmas Vacation. But I had seen this film a couple of times before, including right before I did this pod here. But even to this day, I still don't fully understand the reasoning why we have the unnamed woman in the red Ferrari, of course, played by Christy Brinkley, and we see her throughout the course of the film. She's driving alongside them. She's clearly getting Clark's attention. Then of course we get the big moment at the end when they're in the motel, and they find Clark and her finally meet, and then they go, of course, skinny dipping, which draws the attention of everyone because Clark dives in and he realizes the pool's very cold, so he ends up he drives drives everyone out of bed, including Ellen, but I still don't get what her ultimate, is she trying to seduce him? Is she trying to, get, because honestly she thinks that he's, cute or something. That's why she keeps, I don't want to say she's following them. I think it's just a matter of, they just have, just coincidental that they happen to be together. And then, like I said, they finally meet up here. But, again, let's face it, Clark, as nice of a guy Clark is, he's way out of her league. So, and the fact that she's, kind of, again, it's like flirting with him and then convincing him to skinny dip with her. It's just, I don't know. Obviously Christy Brinkley is incredibly hot. For those that don't know, she was, of course, a long-time Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, which I think is partially why she got this, this role here. But yeah, I know, just still very confusing to me, how, what her ultimate end game is with the film, because after they kind of get caught, then we don't see her again. So, again, just kind of, one of those dangling loose threads I wish we could have gotten a little bit more explanation from. And number three, Ellen is she definitely, it's hard to explain, but it's she's definitely the more level-headed of the two between her and Clark. And even though she tries to always be the voice of reason, he always, kind of, turns her down and everything. And then, eventually we get to the point where she finds him and the girl skinny dipping, and she just, I don't want to say she's kind of just, at a point in her life, because we don't really know how long her and Clark have been married, but she's obviously put up with a lot of this throughout the years, and I feel like she's gotten to a point where it's just she's accepted it and just kind of just learned to roll with the flow. Whereas I think any other woman in her position would probably just finally was like, you know what, I don't need this anymore. I'm done with you. So, just, they don't make it like she's, an abused housewife. I won't, I don't think it's that. I think it's just, maybe she just needs to stick up for herself a little bit more and kind of, be more of an assertive force with Clark and kind of, overcome his brash personality is something. So I again, just a small nitpick, but I've always just kind of thought about that when it comes to her and Clark's relationship. So, but now we'll go ahead and get to my awards here. So, MVP. This is a Chevy Chase vehicle. So he was, he's incredible as Clark. He's, again, just, his manic energy, his, tenacity, his, the way he just, just committed to a goal. And, Chevy Chase, I think, brings that, to the forefront very, very well. And he is definitely, in my opinion, worthy of MVP. He's not my favorite character, though. I will say that my favorite character is actually a tie between Eddie and between and Audrey, which Audrey's kind of one of those interesting characters where she's there, but she's she does kind of get shoved a little bit to the background. When it comes to the family, like we see a lot more of Rusty than we do of her. Maybe that could have been another point that didn't work, that we don't get enough of her like we probably could have been. But I thought she whenever she brought some dialogue, she was pretty good with it. So then my least favorite character was definitely Aunt Edna. Again, it's just, why is she there, really? In my opinion, it's just kind of weird. Favorite scene definitely is the ending where they make it to Wally World, and we see Clark get the BB gun, and he courses the security guard, of course, played really fantastically by John Candy. And to go on all the rides with them. Then the SWAT team shows up, and then the owner of the park shows up, and Clark is able to kind of appeal to him so that he can get he and his family off the hook. So that whole ending sequence was really, really well done, and definitely the highlight of the film. Because again, that's like the ultimate payoff. You want to seeing them make it to Wally World again to enjoy the ride. So. And then final overall grade, I haven't seen this film in a while, so actually, so I thought it was actually really well done. I think that, again, they were, in a really good place in terms of, the count of where they were in terms of comedy, of where it was in terms of a comedy film. Chevy Chase was still pretty hot. Harold Ramis was really getting his feet under him with his directing, because he just directed Caddyshack a few years ago. He's got some big ones still to come. So, I think they knew they were onto something with this, and that's why we would end up getting these, getting the sequels that we did, which maybe could have stopped the Christmas Vacation, but again, it's neither here nor there when it comes with that. But in the end, I am going to go. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I think it was, again, a really fun film. A lot of good laughs in it, a lot of good adventure in it. Some good little action sequences. And yeah, I think really, overall, when you think about, when you think of films about vacation, this is one of the first ones you think about, and it's for good reason, because it is a really well done film. So 8.5 out of 10 for me for this one. But that's going to do it for me. We got some more great films coming up this week. We got some more big theme weeks coming up later this the coming months. And, of course, as we are in the throes of summer, we got the big summer films coming out this year, 2026, that we're going to be covering. So be sure to be on the lookout for that, and continue to support us on this feed and everything else that we do. Not just on this feed, but all of our other feeds. I have a feeling it's going to be a really fun summer. So continue to listen and continue to support us. But with that, I am Steve Riddle. This has been the movie review of the day here on the Pop Experience, and we'll see you next time.